Uta Vardanya Shri Bad Varsa Manya Sarvasi Om Guru Vajradar Sumati Munisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Om Guru Vajradar Sumati Munisha Sane Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Sane Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradar Sumati Munisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradara Sumati Munisha Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Bhakya Kudham Dagi Lo Bhakya Sundang Daki Bhakya Tudang Dagi Yerme Chiktu Chingelo Bhakya Kudang Gelu Bhakya Sundanda Ginga Bhakya Ketudang Dhagi Yerme Chiktu Chingelo Makyu Kekudang Dhagilu Makyu Kesundan Daginga Makyu Kes Yerme Chiktu Chingelo Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha Om Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Muni Mahamuni Munye Swaha Sashi Puki Chushi Meto Chan Rirab Lingshi Nide Genpadi Sangye Shinto Mikte Ulwaraki Drogun Namda Shingla Chepar Sho Yidamang Guru Ratna Mindrala Kam Niryata Yami Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chin Dagi Chuchin Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Chuchin Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchra Sangye Drupar Sho Nel Buddha, nel Dharma,
Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Namo Lhaye Ke Da Ludan Chin Ke Drubuda Da Mi Ke Nam Dan Druwa Kun Ke Janam Che Tsampa Tham Che Ke To Dagi Che Ten Ton. Buongiorno.
Good morning.
Mi ricordo una volta
Once, one of my masters was called Kyabje Trawa Rinpoche. He said that the first thing that we should do so that something happens is to desire it. There is one point where, in order for anything to happen, the first step on our side is to direct our mind towards that, to wish for it. It's a bit like on a journey. The first step to follow a path, take a journey, is to know where we are going, where we want to go, because I don't know if it ever happened to you. Okay, I want to go on vacation, where do I go? I don't know. If someone doesn't know where to go, then he can get ready for it, doesn't know whether he should take clothes to go to the sea or to the mountains, whether it will be hot or cold, whether he has to take the car or the plane, or in what way does he need to prepare, to whom to ask help. Cannot do anything. The first thing that is necessary is to say, okay, I want to go there. Once we have clarity on where we want to go, at that point it's up to us to do anything that comes together with it. So to meet who knows the way to get there, and then to find what accompanies us there, what is the right vehicle to make that journey, and so on. But the first fundamental starting point is to know where I'm going. Actually, there is another aspect that comes together with it, and sometimes even before that. It's not just where I want to go, but also the aspect where do I want to stay where I am or not. Because maybe someone could say, I don't want to go anywhere, I'm fine where I am. Ooh, why should I go on a journey and all of that? Every time that I come back to Bagnano after having been on a journey, it's like, why, whatever, go away from me, I feel like so good here. Then it's also the nature of a human being where you've been for a long time in a place, you want to go somewhere else, and then maybe when you're there you want to go back. We're made like this. But if I don't recognize that where I am there is something that is wrong, then I will not wish to go anywhere else. One of the analogies used in the teachings is like, okay, if I am in prison but I'm not aware of being in prison, and I don't develop the profound wish to get out of the prison, I will never go out of it. First I need to have the awareness. Where I am is not fine, there is something here that doesn't work. And once that I've recognized that this place, this context in which I am, I don't want to be here anymore. At that point, I will see where I want to go, what is the other reality. I need to allow myself to dream. Because one of the major difficulties that we have is that even when we recognize that a situation is not right, internally or externally, very often we don't see alternatives. We say, yeah, but it's just like that. I am just like this. So sometimes even we see the path to get out of the situation more difficult than the situation itself. This, for example, without getting into the details now, happens in situations where there is like a relationship, so-called toxic, with violence. A person is in a violent relationship. On one hand, doesn't want to be in that relationship. On the other hand, sometimes it happens, not always, but sometimes that the idea to get out of the relationship with its consequences seems more difficult rather than staying in the relationship itself. If I don't develop a total aversion towards the fact that where I am is not fine, hardly I will ever put like some effort in going somewhere else. And sometimes I don't even allow myself to dream that. Because when I am in prison and I've made some friends, I like it, I like the Thursday soup, I found some comfort when you go outside, take some sun. I developed a little bit of attachment to my cell. And then, yes, there are ugly, bad moments and all of that, but actually I found a little bit of comfort in that, because beings in general, but especially human beings, have a capacity to adapt that is tremendous. And for as much a situation can be unhealthy, after a while we get used to it, which doesn't mean that it stops being harmful. You can just check the pollution. Once I was in a small town by the sea, and I saw the sea on one hand and would say, how beautiful. Then on the other side, it would be the city, and I was like up, so there would be the view, and I would say, how ugly. How can we make things so ugly sometimes? All these houses in like kind of like a shoebox shape, one close to next to the other with no space in between. With all this beauty that there is around, Because I don't know anyone that when goes in a place where there is like pure nature and a good air and good water doesn't feel the benefit, the well-being of that. And in any case, we continue to pollute, we continue to live as if that was normal. Me, for example, I have my sense of smell is not the best. I don't know if that's because I've lived many years in India, also in contexts where there were many smells. Maybe I buried my sense, I don't know, but I don't have the best sense of smell. There was a period where I did a treatment and then I could feel all the smells more than usual. And during those days, one day I went to Milan and it was like so smelly.
L'odore delle macchine.
The smell of cars, the smell of perfumes. I've always called them stinks, but anyway, that's my own personal thing, no judgment towards anyone. Like for example, in airports, I run away from the perfumes area. But what happens is that the city, when one is there, after a while the one is there, does he perceive that the air is polluted or does he get used to it? The acoustic pollution, all the noises, after a while, one gets used to them. We, human beings, have this capacity of adaptation that is incredible. When we are in a certain situation, our body, our system shows us that that is not fine, and after a while we get used to it. But the fact that I got used to it doesn't mean that it's not harmful. And so, if I am in an unhealthy situation, whether it's internal or external, by situations we don't just mean external, also internally. Like I'm in an unhealthy context, after a while I get used to that, and then I've been in that context for such a long time that I don't see an alternative, and that is the normality to me, until I'm able to look at it and to say, okay, that is not fine. Hardly I will manage to get out of it, to imagine something different. Comes to my mind once that I was in Brazil many years ago, was in Búzios by the sea, where we have a center, and a friend brought me to take a trip on the boat, and we went around, and at a certain point he showed me a sort of house that was there. To remember that it was like a church, but it was not really a church, and it was the place where they would bring slaves, and when slavery was abolished in Brazil, they continued in a clandestine way to bring slaves for I don't know how long. And now, as I was seeing that place, and there is still the house, the place there, a doubt came to my mind and was like, but the people living at that time, that at home had slaves, were they all mean people, bad people? If we will meet those people and talk with them, do you believe that they will be all such mean, bad people, or simply was the normality? Because if today someone of you has slaves home, what will we say? You're out of your mind. Look, so mean. But then we have all the concentration camps in our society, so many of them, where we put animals. We close the parenthesis. At the time, what happened was that I imagine that because one is doing it and the other is doing it and everyone is doing it, then somehow it becomes normal. Sometimes we say, but this is not normal, you're not normal, as if being normal was something good. Normal, it means it's just statistics. But other than that, normal means that somehow we believe that so that Because statistically something is very widespread, then it's right that it's so. It's fine because it's normal. And this with slavery happened. And so at a certain point someone opened his eyes and said, no, this is not fine. Look at the absurdity. One influences the other and influences the other and so on, and then at a certain point one sees how that is harmful to everyone until what was the normality becomes something that is absurd, and then there is a real change. And so when we say that we have this capacity of adaptation, it doesn't refer uniquely to adapting physically to temperature and so on. We get used to and we adapt to context, social context, cultural, where one is doing something and the other is doing something. Get used to that. There are many unhealthy things in our lifestyle. I mean, like in our, also in the broader sense, that we see as normal. Me, very often, I'm very happy to feel abnormal.
Perciò il primo punto,
and so the first step, the first point to really go on a healing path is to recognize that I'm sick.
il secondo punto è fare una
The
corretta
second point is to have a correct diagnosis. And then we need to wish the state of health to then take the path. But first, I need to recognize the symptoms and recognize that I'm sick and have a correct diagnosis.
Siamo malati o
And if we look around us, in the world around us, are we sick or not? In the sense,
c'è tanta sofferenza
there is a lot of suffering,
fisica,
physical,
mentale.
mental.
Noi viviamo in un'epoca
We live in a
dove
time where
anche se è stato fisico,
even if
viviamo come se fossimo
physically
quasi
we lived as if almost we were in the God's realm, in the sense that
abbiamo trovato tanti modi
for
per
physical
evitarlo,
suffering
nella
we
parte
found
più
many,
ricca della
many ways to prevent it, or at least in the
nostra
rich
sofferenza
part of
mentale è
society.
aumentata in modo spaventoso.
Mental suffering
Stessi nel
increased in a,
giornale
in a
si parlava della
tremendous,
crisi
terrific
che
way.
c'è in Italia della salute mentale.
In the news we were talking about they were talking about the crisis in mental health that there is in Italy, and
Se noi
it's
guardiamo
very
la
serious.
nostra società
If we
come
look at our
funziona,
society, how it works,
è malsana.
that's unhealthy.
Noi esiste
There
una
is
storia nel
a
Jataka sono
story
storie che
in the
raccontano le vite
Jataka
precedenti del Buddha,
Tales,
sono tanti
which
aneddoti,
tell about the
eccetera.
previous
C'è un
lives of
aneddoto che
Buddha. There are many
racconta di una sorta di
anecdotes.
un'anatra
One is
che ha
talking
due
about a
teste,
duck that has two heads,
una che rimane
one
sempre
that
in
stays
basso, una
always
che rimane
below
in
and one
alto.
above.
E quest'anatra
And
prende
this
la
duck
testa che è in
goes
alto,
around, and
sempre
the
mangia
head
le
that is
parti
above
buone
always eats like the good
e un po'
parts, the
tratta
good leaves,
la
and
testa
is
più
treating
bassa,
like
un
the
po'
low head
disprezzo.
with like a
Dice, no, ma sono io quello che
but
sono
I
in
am the
alto,
one that is
lascia
on
solo
top,
prendere
and
i
just
resti,
leaves the
quelli che
other
so.
head,
E va avanti
the
così.
leftovers, and it goes on
Finché
like
un
that
giorno,
until a
lunga
certain
storia
day.
breve, un
Long
giorno
story
la
short,
testa che è in giù mangia
one
un
day
veleno
the lower head
finisce nella
eats
stessa
some
maniera
poison, but he ends up in the same belly,
e tutti e due muoiono.
and they both die.
Non è
It's not
logico, non è
logic,
coerente
coherent,
l'idea
the
che
idea
in una
that in a
società
society
una parte possa
part
star veramente bene
could
quando
really
un'altra
be
parte
well
stia
when
molto
another
male.
part is doing very bad.
Non funziona.
It doesn't work.
Noi siamo tutti
We are
interconnessi,
all
interdipendenti.
interconnected, interdependent.
Abbiamo bisogno
We
gli uni
all
degli
need
altri.
one the other.
Perciò se noi vediamo,
And
viviamo in
so
una società
if we
malata
check,
su tanti aspetti.
we live in an unhealthy
Quando noi
society in many
vediamo le
ways.
guerre,
When we look at wars,
le guerre sono
wars
uno dei
are one of the
sintomi
symptoms, the
peggiori
worst
di una
symptoms
società
of
malata.
an unhealthy society,
Quando vediamo la violenza
sick society.
che succede
When we see the violence that happens
nelle famiglie,
in families,
ok? Se vediamo la violenza
we
sulle donne,
see the
piuttosto che
violence on
ci sono
women,
tanti
or
aspetti della nostra
there are many
società che
aspects
fanno
in our
vedere
society
qualcosa
that
che è
shows
malato.
something that is sick.
E a questo punto noi possiamo
At that
chiederci,
point we could ask
noi abbiamo
ourselves,
qualcosa a che vedere con questo o no?
what do we have something to do with it or not?
Cosa c'entriamo noi?
What do we have to do with it?
La domanda che io mi
The
pongo è
question that I ask myself is,
quali sono le
what are
dinamiche
the
dietro le
dynamics
violenze?
behind that are behind violence. Where does this violence come from? Where do wars come from? From the lack of resources, because there is not enough ground for everyone, because there is not enough to eat for everyone, or because there is a lot of ignorance, a lot of selfishness, rancor, hatred, fear.
Io fin d'oggi non sono mai riuscito a trovare un conflitto
Up to today, I was not able to find one conflict that is either that it's in familiar or interpersonal or local, national, international, that is not rooted inside of a human being, inside of its selfishness, hatred, ignorance, and so on. And so, if the problem is inside of us, the solution, where do we need to look for it? In destroying the enemy. But the enemy is inside, it's not outside. This enemy doesn't even need to be destroyed, it needs to be transformed, which is different. What happens is that when we look around us, what we are seeing when we look at wars, when we see all the violence that happens, when we see many situations that are really disastrous, it's as if there were a more clear manifestation of samsara itself, this cycle of mental defilements, negative actions, results of suffering with other actions based on that, many vicious cycles. And then there are people that are more involved into certain dynamics and who less, who lives with more hatred and who lives with less hatred. But when we look inside of us and we ask ourselves, but me, do I take part on my side in what creates the causes of suffering in the world, that is selfishness, or not? I believe maybe so. I live in this same cycle based on ignorance, where I see reality in an incoherent way, when I put myself at the center of everything, where the priority is my pleasure, my needs, my suffering. Do we live in this way or not? Yes. This is not a process to just look at so that we can look at ourselves and say, look how bad I am. But it's to look at us inside of ourselves and to say, how much does my samsara suck? And it's a process to say, okay, I don't want to stay like this. And then we can ask a very valid question, that is, okay, I recognize how much selfishness sucks, how much ignorance is harmful, hatred, and so much, and how much I am involved in all of that. But is there an alternative or not? Because someone could look at that and say, look, everywhere, anywhere I go, I see all of this, so at least I try to not harm anyone and to live my life. Well, that is already a lot. And when we look around us, a question that I ask myself, like really seriously, and what I recognize is that I had the great opportunity to meet some people, not many, but also not so few, that were and still are for me examples of someone that lives in a different dynamic. Someone that lives in this world out of the normality, the normal beings that don't live on the basis of selfishness, on the basis of hatred, of violence, and so on, and that are doing really good, are feeling well. Because if one has a more altruistic, respectful attitude, more balanced, more compassion, more satisfaction, less attachment, and so on. If that person would suffer more than the others, then one would say, well, why would I ever do that? But when we see these people and these beings that have this inner state that is developed in this way, then we see that they're doing really much better.
qua che io dico,
That's where I say, how did you do that?
che è un po' la storia di Buddha Maitreya.
It's also the story of Buddha Maitreya a bit.
Si
Buddha
racconta
Maitreya
che
is
viene
it
chiamato
was
il Buddha del
it was
futuro.
told, okay, it was called the future Buddha. Maitreya means love, so the personification of
Si
love.
racconta che quando Buddha
And
Shakyamuni
it is said that when Buddha Shakyamuni was born on this planet,
e nella terra pura di Tushita,
in the
i vari Buddha,
Pure Land of
eccetera, si
Tushita, the various Buddhas met up
e hanno fatto questa
and they
riunione.
had
In
this
mezzo a questa
meeting,
riunione
and
hanno
in the
detto,
middle of
"Guarda,
this,
il mondo
they
sta
said,
andando
like
abbastanza
the
schifo,
world
diciamo."
there, the earth, yeah, seems to do
E si
to
sono
be doing
guardati
pretty
intorno e dicono,
badly. They
"Io
look
no,
around
neanch'io,
themselves. No, I don't want to go
neanch'io."
there. No, me neither.
Alla fine, no,
And
però
then,
che sarebbe Buddha
okay,
Shakyamuni ha detto,
what
"Vabbè,
was
vado
Buddha
io."
Shakyamuni said, okay, I go
Perché
there.
in questa era di
And in this era
degenerazione,
of
così ci
degeneration
vado
and
io.
so on, okay,
Questo
I go
è
there.
rappresentato
And this
nel
is
sentiero che va
represented
da qua fino al
on the
centro,
path that
ci
goes
sono
from here to
il dietro, nella litta
the
vistacea,
center,
nella
and
parte
all the
della
stones that are there. This
E
is what
quindi
is represented
lui
there. And so
lascia
he,
il prossimo che verrà, che prende l'impegno di venire dopo, è Maitreya.
the next one that took the commitment of coming was Buddha Maitreya. So then Buddha
E si
Shakyamuni
racconta
comes, and
che
it
il
is
prossimo
said that
Buddha
the next
manifestato
Buddha manifested
formalmente, perché gli
formally,
esseri
because
sacri
also
si manifestano in
sacred
tanti
beings are
modi.
manifested in many ways.
Verrà il
Will
momento
come
in cui la
the moment will
degenerazione
come
sarà tale
where the
che la
generation will
spiritualità
be
sarà
such
qualcosa
that
che non sarà
spirituality
più
will be something that
accessibile.
will not be visible, accessible anymore.
E piano
And
piano,
bit by
questa è una
bit,
descrizione
this is a
che viene data,
description that is
quando poi, non
given.
facciamo una minima idea,
How,
spero che
when, we
sia
don't have any
molto
idea.
lungo.
Well, let's hope that times will
Però
be
viene
very long,
descritto che ci
but
sarà
it's
un momento in
described
cui
that
la
there will be a time where
degenerazione
degeneration will
aumenterà, perché la realtà
increase
è ciclica.
because reality is
E
cyclical,
dove la vita
and
durerà
where
poco,
life will last short,
le persone saranno
people
molto
will be
brutte.
very ugly.
E il poco della vita, c'è
And
un punto interessante che
there is an
noi
interesting
abbiamo la
point also, the
sensazione
fact
oggi
that
che viviamo
today
di
we
più,
have
no?
the feeling that we live
Qual è
longer.
l'età media
What
che
is
una
the
persona
average
vive oggi?
age that a person is living today?
80
Like
almeno, dai,
80
uno che arriva a
years?
80 diciamo
Okay,
si
maybe
gioca
one
di
that
fatto, no?
says,
Non è che
well, I'm 80,
una
you could
volta
say, yeah,
80
I'm young.
sei già andato oltre e non ti fa
Once
corso,
when you
no?
were 80, you were
Ormai
already
80, vabbè, dai,
beyond and
una
didn't
ventina
even
d'anni ce la
realize,
fai.
okay, now maybe you have 20 more years.
Però quello che succede è
But
che
what
cos'è?
happens is
Anche se
that
noi viviamo
even
più
if
anni
we live more
nell'orologio
years, like
contato,
by
nel
by the
calendario,
watch, by the clock,
la vita oggi
life
dura
today
meno che una volta.
lasts
Le
less
cose
than
passano più veloci,
once
la qualità del
because
tempo è
the
cambiata.
quality of time has changed. Things pass
L'infanzia dura
more
meno.
quickly. Childhood also is shorter.
Ok? Questi sono alcuni esempi.
These are some
Quindi comunque
examples.
sia, adesso non
So in any
volevo
case,
entrare in
now
questo
I didn't want to get
aspetto di
into this
Buddha Maitreya,
aspect
di
of saying,
spiegare i
okay,
tipi di degenerazione,
Buddha
sono i vari
Maitreya to
aspetti di
explain the various
degenerazione.
aspects of
Esiste la
degeneration.
degenerazione del
There is
tempo,
the generation
che
of
vale
time
sempre
that
meno.
is worth
Esiste
less
la
and less. The
degenerazione
degeneration of
dell'ambiente,
the
che va sempre
environment
più in
that is
ozzo.
always
La
more and
degenerazione
more
della
unhospitable.
medicina che
Then the
guarisce
degeneration
sempre
of
meno.
medicine, healing
La
less and less.
degenerazione
The
del cibo
degeneration
che
of
nutre
food
meno,
that
la degenerazione
nourishes
delle
less and less.
malattie che vengono sempre
The
nuove di
degeneration
più,
of
la
diseases
degenerazione
that are
dei veleni
getting
mentali
more
che sono sempre
and
più
more
forti.
harmful, and also of the mental defilements.
Non voglio deprimere nessuno.
Now, I don't want to make anyone
Però
depressed,
questo
but
è qualcosa che in
this
parte noi
is
lo stiamo
something that
vivendo.
partly we are
La
already
buona
living. The
notizia
good news
è che
are
quando
that
le degenerazioni sono più
is that when
forti,
degeneration is stronger,
la pratica
the
spirituale
spiritual
ha
practice
più potere.
has more power.
Se io vivo è
If
un
I'm
po' come per
living
dire, in una giornata
to
di
be like,
sole
okay,
come oggi,
in a sunny,
accendo
bright
una
day like
candela,
today,
quella
I
luce
light a
non si
candle,
percepisce neanche.
you don't even perceive that
Se
light.
sono nel buio
If I am in
totale,
total
quella
darkness,
piccola
that
candelina lì
small
riesce a
flame
illuminare
can
tantissimo.
lighten up the whole
Perciò quando ci troviamo in un
space.
contesto
So
che
when
c'è
we are in a
tanta
context
oscurità,
where there is a lot of
la luce
darkness,
si vede di più,
we can
si
see
riesce a illuminare
light
di
more,
più.
is able to
Ok?
be perceived
Perciò,
more. And so
quando viene anche descritto che
it is
in un
also
momento
described
dove
that in a
c'è
moment
tanto
where there is a
amore,
lot of love,
uno genera amore,
one
va
generates love,
benissimo
and
ed è
that is
importante,
great,
però ha
and
un
that is
certo
important,
potere.
but it has a certain
Quella
power.
stessa quantità
That
di
same
amore in un
quantity of
contesto dove
love in a
non c'è
context
amore
where
ha
there
un
is no
potere
love
molto
has a much greater power.
Ok? Quindi nei tempi
So
di
in the times of
degenerazione, da un
degeneration,
lato la
on
pratica
one hand,
spirituale è più
spiritual practice
difficile,
is
da un
more
altro
difficult,
lato
on the other
più
hand,
potente.
is more powerful.
Ok? E si racconta che a un certo
And it
punto
is said that at a certain point,
sarà tutto così
everything will
schifoso,
be so
brutto,
bad
eccetera.
and ugly and so on.
E a un
And at a certain point, Buddha Maitreya will come, and while everyone will be small and not against small beings, but it is said that they will be all small and ugly, with a bad mood and everything. And at a certain point, Buddha Maitreya comes, who is tall, ugly, beautiful, luminous, joyous, and everyone is looking at him and saying, "But how can you be so beautiful? How can you be? Can you feel so well?" And he, at that point, starts to talk about love, and it starts the cycle of Buddha Maitreya. The fundamental point is that we need examples, points of references, because I can see that I'm not well, I can recognize that I'm sick, but if I don't have a point of reference of a state of health and of someone that has that state of health, I have a hard time to desire it and to follow it. When we relate with others, we are very self-referential. And it's interesting because if I see you and I recognize that I have something similar with you and you do something, then I can also do it. And for this, one of the most important points for us in our path is to have some role models, some life examples that are sane.
Okay. Quando noi guardiamo le immagini che abbiamo qua, no?
When we look at the images that we have here, we have Tisha, we have Three Rinpoche, Amazon Kappa. These are our role models, not for their external appearance, but for their internal reality and consequently how they lived the world outside. I had the chance to meet various people, men, women, in the formal religious context and non-formal, that for me were, many of them are not physically here, but others are still there. Examples, real examples for me that it's possible to be well, to live in harmony, with balance, with respect, with love, with gratitude. It's possible to be well.
Ed è qua che quando noi prendiamo
It's here that when we take refuge, we need a reference.
Okay. E viene detto che il guru,
And it's said that the guru
è più importante,
is more important for us. If we had to compare, which is not a really great thing to do, it is said that it's more important than all the Buddhas put together. Because
profondo rispetto
I have profound respect to all Buddhas, but have I ever seen them?
Vi chiedo,
No, I ask you. Maybe it's me who can't see them. Me, living with this body, in order to interact with someone, we need someone that is like us. Because even if a Buddha comes in the body of a dog, a turtle, a cat, I cannot recognize a Buddha. I am self-referential, as we all are, so I need someone with which I can interact and relate with. Okay, you can do it, so I can also do it. We need to touch each other, feel each other, to be with each other. And that's why when we take refuge, in the Mahayana we say, okay, first Namo Gurubhya, then Namo Buddhaya, where the Guru is whom represents the Buddha. The Buddha, like we said yesterday, not the person of Buddha Shakyamuni, but we're talking about of the state of enlightenment, of the state where mental defilements have been eliminated and the wisdom and compassion and love have been developed to their maximum potential. And then, in our ignorant attitude, one of the normal attitudes is to say, but is he a Buddha? Let's see. It does this. Okay, does a Buddha do this? No, I think not. So we start to look for things. And here there are some problems. The first is that I cannot see anything independently from myself, and me as an imperfect being, I will not be able to see like a perfect thing. Me, inevitably, I will project my envy, my fear, my things on the other, independently where I am, on wherever I am with. And so, even if I wanted to see the Buddha in its perfection, I will not ever be able to see him, as long as I will not reach that state. I don't know if this is clear. Because in any case, we have our own expectations, our own projections, fears, and so on. But anyway, we have the capacity, when we allow ourselves, to feel and perceive the qualities that are there, either in people that we can meet in flesh and bones, and also sometimes we also hear some stories, names, we read some books, and there are some connections that are particular. And for me, there are some masters that just hearing their name kind of gives me a lot of emotion. I don't know why. Then it's interesting to see those that I've always had a connection with for some reason are all connected with each other. For example, Kedrup Sangye Yeshe, when I went last time in Tibet and I went to his monastery, he was one of the masters of Panchen Losang Choki Gyatsen, and I was in front of his statue, and I cannot explain why. I was just like there, frozen and with a strong emotion, and I started crying. And after they told me also that inside of that statue there is also his body. But aside from that, there are masters where my experience is that one hasn't met them personally, but they touch us deeply somehow. And this is described that these are the connections that we bring from life to life. And the point where I want to get to is that we need these examples. We need to have a direction to follow. Otherwise, we end up like the last man of Nietzsche, where Nietzsche says, or so I understood at least, at a certain point there would be those that would be called the last man, that would be those that will look at the stars, but would say how beautiful, but will not even dare to wish for them, let alone to go towards them, because they are so far away and high up, and I'm so low here, and so it's too difficult to get there, and don't even allow myself to wish to get there. I rather remain in my comfortable survival. When we see samsara, when we see selfishness, when we see hatred, envy, fear, jealousy, we see the vicious cycles in which we live. But on the other hand, we don't have the alternative, a clear alternative. At a certain point, we just say, okay, this is what I know, I remain here. Because for as much as I don't want to stay in a certain situation, if I don't have where I can take refuge, I don't do the movement to get there. And if I see someone that is doing well, that was sick like me and was able to heal, I will go to him and ask in all possible ways, how did you do that? And then, if that person says, look, I did this and that, so you can also try this, I try that. That's what Buddha Shakyamuni did. At a certain point he said, look, I don't agree that one really has to suffer, Because the tendency very often is to give up. Okay, suffering is part of life and that's it. Buddha Shakyamuni said no. According to me, there must be a way out. And he saw that through the power, through the pleasure, through money, it didn't work. And as a prince, he had more than anything, and then his father didn't want to get out of the palace and to look for a different way, alternative to that of becoming a great king, so he tried to keep him in all possible ways. It is said that when he was like 15 years old, he received as a birthday present an harem. So he had like all possible pleasures, and at a certain point he looked at all of this and said, but anyway, one is suffering. And we living in a time where sensorial pleasures and wealth, there is a lot of that, and when we look around us, we see that whatever else there could be, wealth there could be, that there is still a lot of suffering. And or do we imagine that the richest people on earth live in a constant state of satisfaction and bliss? I don't think so. Or at least those that I met, I saw a lot of suffering in them.
Principe Siddhartha vede questo e dice devo trovare una soluzione diversa.
So the Prince Siddhartha saw this and thought, okay, I need to find a different way. And so he did meditation, asceticism for like 6 years, and he was able to see. And after that, okay, he went into a deeper meditation, and he saw that the suffering came from inside, not outside. And in that moment, it's as if he poured water to make those seeds that he was bringing with him come out. But those were all things that came from former lives. So it is also said that the process lasted like 500 years already on the path towards enlightenment, with human being rebirths, and 500 lives as a bodhisattva with human being lives. One of the text references also says that, okay, Buddha Shakyamuni had 500 lives as a bodhisattva, as an animal, so being born as whatever kind of animal. So we never really know who we have in front. And what happens is that during that life, Buddha was able to reach a state where he was able to overcome that state of selfishness, to overcome his ignorance, to grasp at a reality that is incoherent, illusory. Beings are described in 3 possible states. There are us, that are sleeping, dreaming, and not aware of being dreaming. Reality appears to us as if it was in an autonomous, independent, objective way, and we don't recognize that, and we live this appearance, this illusory appearance of a solid, autonomous, independent reality as if it was real. And then there are those that are sleeping, dreaming, but came to the point that they know that the dream is a dream. And so reality appears as if it was autonomous, independent, objective, but one knows that it's not like that. One knows that reality is interdependent, subjective, relational, and so on. And then there are those that don't dream anymore, that woke up, to whom reality doesn't appear anymore as if it was autonomous, independent, objective, but appears in a coherent way with its nature, as being interdependent, subjective, and so on. And that is what is called an awakened one. Actually, so someone that woke up. But the Buddha often is called the awakened one. This refers to this analogy to reality. But the point is that at a certain point, Buddha Shakyamuni reached this state of deep peace, putting it in a few words, and started to share with those that realized this. His first original disciples asked him teachings, and bit by bit, many people would see in him amazing qualities and would ask him, how did you do that? Can you show me? And Buddha showed the way. The most important thing is that it also worked for them. And so from that, disciples of Buddha, more and more, reaching also them a state of peace and balance, they started to share with others. And this comes up to us today. And we have the luck of having beings that in this life show us that it's possible. But here, how can I say?
Perché funzioni veramente.
In order that it can really work, it goes beyond words. It's a bit like falling in love. It's something that one feels inside. One feels like, wow. And there is that wish that one has. It's not like reason, because this and that. And one of the fundamental points on the path when we talk about refuge is to know, where do I take refuge? I take refuge in the Buddha. Why do I take refuge in the Buddha? Because at the beginning I don't even know what is the Dharma. I see someone that is doing well and I also want to be well. How did you do that? I see someone that got out of the prison and I ask him, how did you do that? So I need that example, and the Buddha is that point of reference for us. Buddha is a being that managed to eliminate completely his own ignorance and selfishness, and consequently the various mental defilements, attachment, jealousy, then lives at peace with himself and the others, with an unconditional state of love and compassion and harmony, joy. It has a manifestation. Then if you get into the various details, those are beautiful and very long, with the qualities of body of Buddha. The body of Buddha is a body that is able to adapt to the condition and needs of the others. One of the qualities that is given to a Buddha, and this is very difficult for us to understand, but that is described, is that Buddha is really able to do multitasking, that is to manifest in various bodies at the same time. Also one of the masters of Lama Ganchen, Kyabche Soren Rinpoche, once in 81 he had an interview, someone had an interview with him, talking about the Turku, reincarnations and so on. And so Rinpoche was extremely direct. Was this master also of the Konten Lama that we saw this morning. And so Rinpoche, at the end, he had many disciples, but few that would be close to him every day because he was very direct. And in this interview, Sang Rinpoche was talking about, when he was talking about the system of reincarnation, first he pointed the finger at what wasn't really working, okay, like this does work, that doesn't work. Like for example, sometimes someone is a good Dharma teacher, Dharma master, and goes on his spiritual path and then dies, his reincarnation is found, the disciples of the former life are there.
So spoiled. A viziare.
They're spoiling that kid as if he was already the Buddha on earth, and he grows up feeling so special that at the end the spiritual development work that he did, he wastes it in that life rather than going more deeper on the path. And then there are the enlightened beings that manifest in order to help. He was talking about one of his masters, of which he was convinced that he was a Buddha. And he was talking about one morning where the attendant of this master went to him. Now I don't remember the name. The attendant went to him, I think it was Tebo Dorje, but anyway, he went to him to bring him tea, which is very common with great practitioners that start to practice very early. So usually the time to start the meditation in the morning is at like 2:30, 3 in the morning, because the first session of meditation should be finished before dawn. So the best moment to meditate during the whole day are those 2 hours before dawn. But who does this? That I know, there is Geshe Dubten Kunsang, that is here during the retreat with us, and then after he finishes the session in the afternoon, we will have a brief moment together. And he, among all the people that we know, is the personification of self-discipline. He's really incredible, like, and also with really strong humility. Anyway, he did 2 retreats here with us, and when he does this, when he is not in retreat, he he does like 6 or 8 months of a retreat during a year. When he's in retreat, he starts to meditate at like 2:30 or 3, and then he also calculates like the sun, whether he should start like at 3:45 or stuff like that. But the point is that Tebo Dorchang, very early in the morning, his assistant brings him, if I remember well, he brings him tea, and he finds his master laughing so much by himself. He was just sitting there laughing, and he asked him, "But why are you laughing so much?" And he said, "Ah, no, no, let it be. But no, please tell me." And he said, "You know, I have an emanation that is in China, like close to Pekino, and he's a homeless person. And that day, finally, was able to get some nice food, and some dogs came and stole it from him, and he was laughing about it. And at that point, the attendant asked him, "But sorry, master, how many emanations do you have?" He said, "Tomorrow I will answer you. I need to meditate." The day after, he asked again. Look, those that I was able to recognize are around 200.
Quello che voglio dire
What I want to say is that there is a part of reality that goes beyond our capacity of comprehension.
vero, non vero,
True, not true. This gets into a category that in Tibetan is called, okay, phenomena are divided in 3 types. The direct phenomena, which are everything that we are able to see through our senses, perceive through our senses. There are indirect phenomena, hidden. There are those that we are not able to perceive through our senses, but are able to perceive through our reason, through logic. One example that is given is
il fuoco che c'è dietro
the
la
fire that is behind the mountain. I don't see the fire, but I see the smoke, and I know that where there is smoke, there is fire. And so I can say, okay, there is fire. I perceive the fire even if I don't see it indirectly. It's hidden, but I perceive it. Some emotions that the other person is feeling, one can manifest them in the expression of the face. I cannot perceive the emotion, is a hidden phenomenon, but I can get there through logical processes, see that manifestation in the face, so it means that there is that emotion. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes not. And then there are extremely hidden phenomena. There are those that we're not able neither to perceive through our senses and neither through logic. For example, former lives. The causes that created a certain situation in the present moment, the mind of the other, effectively. And so, when we talk about a Buddha, many descriptions are given in the teachings of the Sutra of Buddha and the teachings given after that of really incredible qualities. When we talk about the body of a Buddha, Buddha has the capacity of manifesting in various bodies at the same time, which are called the bodies of emanation. But for me, the thing that impresses me the most is to see those emanations, those beings that are in flesh and bones, that show me what I want to become. And this is the strongest thing for me. But when we talk about the Buddha, one of the ways to understand how much Buddha is valid as a guide. Because the reality is that I don't want to suffer anymore, I want to get out of samsara. I need to find someone that did it. When he transmits the Dharma and I start to listen to him, if I find incoherence, then I could say, look, you're beautiful and everything, but I think this is not working. If, on the other hand, he shares a path and what I'm able to do of that path, I see that it works, I see that it's coherent, then at that point I will trust it. For example, me with Lama Michel Rinpoche, there were some moments where he said things to me that I did not understand, and in some cases I will not understand. But my direct experience was that when Rinpoche was convinced of something and gave a direction, there would be a reason, and it worked. And so I trusted him. And then, after, with time, I was able to understand. Why? Because I saw that on many other things it worked. So, if someone gives me some advice and it works, and then at a certain point it gives me some advice that I don't understand, but I saw that all the others work. Do I trust him or not? I do. Without ever losing my capacity of judgment. Buddha himself said, take my teachings and do as you will do when you buy gold. You need to cut it, you need to scratch it, you need to burn it to see whether the gold is real or not. Don't just take it for granted. So take my teachings and try them. If they work, then put them into practice. And so, Dharma, on one hand, you get to the Dharma through the Buddha. On the other hand, it's the Dharma that validates the Buddha.
Però quando noi prendiamo rifugio nel Buddha,
but when we take refuge in the Buddha,
noi non stiamo prendendo rifugio in
we're
una
not
persona,
taking refuge in a person,
in un essere,
in a being,
in un Dio.
in a God.
Noi stiamo prendendo
We are
rifugio,
taking refuge.
posso dire, è difficile anche certe
How can I
volte
say?
mettere in
It's also
parole,
difficult to put into words sometimes,
ma è uno stato.
but it's a state,
E ci sono gli esseri
and
che hanno
there are the
raggiunto quello
beings
stato.
that reach that state.
Buddha Shakyamuni
Buddha
è uno
Shakyamuni
di
is
questi
one
che ha
of
manifestato.
these that manifested
Ci sono
it,
tante altre
and there are
manifestazioni.
many others,
Quindi
or
io voglio
other
raggiungere
manifestations.
quello stato lì.
So I
Voglio
want to
essere
reach that
libero
state.
da
I want to
questo
be free from this
sofferenza in cui mi trovo.
cycle of suffering in which I find
E
myself. And
è interessante perché anche se
it's
la presa di
interesting
rifugio
because
è
even
proprio
if the take of
l'inizio del
refuge is
sentiero,
really
la
the beginning
porta
of
che
the
ci
path,
apre per la
the
pratica
door
reale del
that
Dharma,
opens us
più
to the
passano
real
gli
practice
anni,
of
più
Dharma,
la
the
presa
more
di rifugio, se
years
pratichiamo
pass, the more,
correttamente,
if we
diventa più
practice
profondo,
correctly, the
qualcosa che
take of
dobbiamo
refuge
rivedere,
becomes deeper and deeper,
qualcosa che
something
dobbiamo
that we
ritornare. Non è un
revisit
qualcosa
and
che possiamo
that
prendere
we
per
come back on.
scontato.
It's
L'ho
not
fatto, ho
something that we
finito,
can
però
give
non passa.
for granted. Okay, I've done it.
Ok?
Okay, next steps.
Perché, ripeto un'ultima volta,
Because I repeat once
se
again,
noi
if
non
we
sviluppiamo
don't
le cause
develop
del
the
rifugio,
causes of refuge,
riconoscere il
to
samsara e
recognize
non voler
samsara,
stare nel
to
samsara,
not want to be in the
riconoscere
samsara,
il
to
Buddha come
recognize
stato
the
da
Buddha
raggiungere
as
e
a state to
volerlo
reach
raggiungere,
and want to reach it.
possiamo
Then we
studiare,
can
leggere,
study, we
meditare,
can
ma
read, we can
rimaniamo dove
meditate,
siamo.
but we stay where we are.
Perché la prima cosa
Because the
necessaria per
first
arrivare
thing
da
that is
qualche
necessary
parte
to
è
get somewhere is to
desiderare.
wish for it.
Ok? E certe volte noi
And
non siamo
sometimes
capaci di
we are not
desiderare
able
certi
to
posti
wish some
perché non
places
sappiamo
because
neanche che
we don't even
esistono.
know that they exist.
Il punto qua è che
The
Buddha
point
dice,
here is that
questo
Buddha
Buddha
says,
Shakyamuni ci
this
racconta,
Buddha
no? Poi
Shakyamuni,
passato attraverso i vari maestri del lignaggio, arriva a noi che dice
then it
è
was also passed through the
possibile
various
vedere in
lineage
pace,
masters that come
raggiungere il
to us.
cosiddetto
It is
nirvana,
possible
è possibile
to
stare in pace
reach
con se
a
stessi
state of
e gli altri.
peace and to
Come?
be in peace with oneself and the others,
Superando i nostri
and how
veleni mentali,
gradually
coltivando le nostre
gradually
qualità più
overcoming
profonde.
our mental defilements and cultivating our deeper
E viene
qualities.
descritto un percorso
And it's
molto
described a
dettagliato,
very detailed path
che vengono chiamati 5
that are called the
sentieri e
5
10 bumi.
paths
Sentiero
and
della
the 10 bhumis,
accumulazione,
the path of
della
accumulation, preparation, the path of vision,
visione, della
of familiarization and or meditation, and the path of no more learning. And between the path of vision and of no more learning, there are 10 passages, and for each one of these, many details are given on how it's done and so on. But the first necessary path is, okay, I want to go, I want to reach that place. And it's here that I invite you to allow yourselves to dream a bit.
Non un luogo.
Not a place.
Non è il sognare un mondo.
It's not to dream a better world also, but not in this moment. It's to dream, who do I want to become?
Quindi io vorrei
And so I want to be a person, a balanced person, joyous, at peace with myself and with the others, that is able to live in harmony with every situation, with an unconditional love towards any being, in a state of joy, profound, spontaneous joy.
Io vorrei essere un essere che
I would want to be a being that wherever I'm with, I can bring some positive interdependence and bring some benefit in whatever context I am. And the question is it possible or not?
Se noi chiediamo al Buddha, il Buddha ci dice sì, è possibile.
And first we wish for it, and then if we ask for the Buddha, then we say, yes, it's possible. Is it difficult? Yes, a lot, but it's possible. And so to take refuge in this moment is this internal, intimate moment where we say, okay, enough, I can't take my samsara anymore. And I see a way out. And I will do anything that is necessary in order to go there.
A me mi viene in mente
To me comes to my mind a movie that has already a few years now. I think it was called The Wings of Freedom, where there is this man that was put in prison in a wrong way, and he planned his own way out of the prison, and years pass as he's building his tunnel, and then one day he's able to get out of it. But what gave him the effort, the drive to do all of that? The fear of the prison, in the sense that, okay, I don't want to be there, I don't want to be in the prison, and the trust in the beauty of freedom.
E la fiducia nella propria capacità di farcela.
And the trust in one's own capacity to do it. That's what we need, otherwise if we don't take refuge correctly, we will keep on taking refuge in a reality that is external, idealized.
Continueremo a vittimizzarci.
We will continue to victimize ourselves and to wait for one day when everything will be fine, then it will also be well.
Poi quel giorno non arriva.
Then the day doesn't come, we will die soon. And then we live inside of that loop, where we victimize ourselves, where we wait for something, for all to be fine, and the reality is that it doesn't work. When we say to take refuge is an act of courage, it's an act of trust in ourselves. I rely on Guru Buddha, I rely on the Buddha and on the Guru, which are together, inseparable, to guide me in my Dharma practice, because I know that I can practice. I trust myself. I am not in a hurry to get there, because it's a long and gradual process, but I am in a hurry to walk in the right direction. And taking again quickly the text of Poponka Rinpoche,
per prendere rifugio,
in order to take refuge, one can take refuge after having apprehended the qualities of the three jewels. In Tibetan, jewels are konchok. Kon means rare, difficult to find, and chok means excellent.
Sono tre cose.
So these are three things that are difficult to find, that are rare, and that are excellent, because they are very good for us. So when we're able to find something that is extremely precious in our life and that is difficult to find, because the rare things are not necessarily good. There are some rare diseases that one doesn't want. We are talking about something that is extremely valuable, precious, that can bring some huge benefit, and that is difficult to have. If we are talking about talking material terms, if at a certain point I don't know, the most trivial thing is like a bag of money is given to you with 2 million euro, all legal is given to you, what would you do? You would just leave it somewhere, you try to protect it. I would say yes, right? If we find something that is precious, naturally we protect it. If I have a lot of hunger and I find some food, then I eat it. I don't pretend that it's not there. And when we talk about the Buddha, the Guru, the Dharma, the Sangha, that's something extremely difficult to find in life. When we see the world around us, the percentage of beings that have a possibility of following a spiritual path and that find someone guiding them correctly is very low. The majority of beings live in a state of constant survival. Is difficult, so others have a more comfortable survival. Some want to give more meaning to their lives and follow a spiritual path and don't find who can guide them correctly. Unfortunately, many are guided in a wrong way. Unfortunately, there is also manipulation and abuse on the side of who theoretically should be guiding. We can give many examples, but that's not the case. But the most simple basis is that if I guide you spiritually and I bring you towards violence, then I'm not doing the right thing. Maybe on your side, who is following that path, you have trust, you have faith, and you do what you believe that is right. But the mistake is on the side of who's guiding you. And so, to find someone guiding us correctly, by correctly we mean that is guiding us in a process of internal transformation that really works, that brings towards peace, love, satisfaction, towards wisdom, harmony, is difficult to find. Even inside religions themselves. And so, once that I find someone guiding me correctly, what do? Tomorrow. No, I stick to that and I don't ever leave it. And then, once that I find something that works, a way of life, a way of thinking, a way of acting that really helps me to suffer less and to reach more and more a state of peace and well-being for myself and the others, what do? Do I just leave it like that? Or I try to hold it tight. Ideally, that is precious. Which is the Dharma. When I find a context where I can be myself, where I shouldn't be afraid of judgment, where there is a way of walking together in the same direction, each one with his or her own imperfections. We are not solitary beings, we need company. We need to hold this preciously, which is the Sangha, this other jewel. When we take refuge at the beginning, one takes refuge more in the Buddha, in the Guru. Then, one gets more mature, is able to take more refuge in the Dharma. And then, as one goes on, is able also to take refuge in the Sangha. Because our tendency is to idealize the Sangha and to say, no, Sangha, No, look, that person is like that, the other person is like that. Why? That's much more difficult. One needs lot more maturity, even if that's more important, very important, not more. When we talk about the three jewels, it's because these are three extremely precious things, because through these things we're able to reach what we want the most, that is to be at peace with ourselves and the others. And so we need to protect them, we need to keep them with great care, and to not give for granted their presence in our lives. And to take refuge, we need first to get to know what are the qualities of the three jewels of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. When we talk about the Buddha, the Guru comes together with it, because the Guru for us is the manifestation of the Buddha in flesh and bones. So we have the qualities of Buddha, the qualities of Dharma, the qualities of Sangha. Then the Buddha has the qualities of body, speech and mind, and the actions, the quality of actions. The qualities of the body of a Buddha, there are the 80 signs of the body, the 36 major signs and 80 minor signs, where all the characteristics of the body of a Buddha is described. But I saw that for our culture, this is not telling us much. The main quality of the body of a Buddha is that it's a capacity of manifesting physically, according to the needs of the beings of the time where he finds himself in different moments, situations, and that capacity of manifesting in various physical forms at the same time.
Le qualità della parola.
The qualities of speech of a Buddha can be described in many ways, but the main quality of speech is that the Buddha has the capacity of talking the language of each one. So when a Buddha speaks, each one that is listening is perceiving as if it would be talking for himself, going even beyond the barriers of languages. And when it's said that Buddha speaks the language of each one, that for me doesn't mean that he speaks like English or Italian or French, because I can also talk in Italian, but I can also not talk the language of each one that is talking Italian. To talk the same language means to say what one is able to perceive and to touch that person's mind and heart. This is the main quality of the speech of a Buddha. And the mind of a Buddha is a mind that is in a state of constant harmony, a state of constant peace, where with a state of unconditional love and compassion lives each phenomenon with its own nature. So living what is impermanent as being impermanent, what is relative as being relative, living reality in a coherent way. Then there are much more complex aspects. We're talking about omniscience of a Buddha. One of the characteristics of omniscience of the mind of a Buddha is the capacity of being aware of everything that appears to the senses. Through some scientific studies, it is said that usually we use a very, very small part of our brain in a conscious way. And for example, in the present moment, each one of us is receiving each second around like 11 million pieces of information. In the precise terms would be like 11 million bits of information pieces. And of these 11 millions, we are aware in a conscious way of around like 50 bits. There are those that say 10, and we are generous. Then there are those that say 2,000, but even like 2,000 and 11 million, there is still a huge gap. The level of omniscience of a Buddha, there are 5 types of omniscience, but one of these that is described is the capacity of being perfectly aware of any information that gets to each one of the senses. So, to have the awareness of 11 million on 11 million. This is one of the aspects when we talk about the mind of a Buddha. There are much more complex aspects that are difficult for us to comprehend. It is said that the mind of Buddha transcends past, present, and future. And one could say, how can this happen? But isn't future uncertain? And when I started to study something very superficially, where I was able to study of some physics and to check, according to physics, what is time, what is the past and the future, we see that actually it's very different on what we actually in general see. And a Buddha, it's said that the mind of a Buddha transcends time and space.
La mente del Buddha,
The mind of Buddha is clairvoyance that is capable of reading the mind of others. There are no barriers of time and space for the perception of a Buddha. And the main quality that is described of the mind of a Buddha is a state of love and compassion that is limitless, unconditional, and his total harmony with every being and with everything. The actions of a Buddha come as a result of a quality of his mind that is the fact of not having doubt or uncertainty about anything. And so, he has a direct, clear action where he acts always for what is of greatest benefit for the context in which he is in. And the main quality that is attributed to the actions of a Buddha is that the Buddha interacts according to the capacities of each being. So he manifests in one way for a person, or another way for another being, adapting to the places, to the mentality, to the culture, to the level of each one according to what their needs are.
Quando noi cominciamo e vediamo il Buddha,
when we start and look at a Buddha and we start to see those qualities that are simpler, like the constant state of harmony and peace, that for us already means so much. Then, when one already starts to want to help the others, how difficult it is to help someone? A lot. Not in the sense of sacrifice, in the sense that in order for me to be able to help you, I need to be able to talk your language. I need to, because one thing is fine to give you food, but the other thing is to help you to change yourself, to help you to overcome your ignorance and your selfishness. And in order to do that, I need to be able to see you and to see reality with your eyes, to be able to explain reality, a coherent reality, through your language. And the only being that can do this is a Buddha towards anyone. I can do with those that are more similar to me, and so for each one of us, but those are very few. And if we manage to do that, but in order to do that with any being is to be a Buddha.
possiamo passare qua ore a parlare.
Can spend hours to talk about the qualities of a body of a Buddha and so on, but I would say that
È abbastanza bene così.
that's good enough like that.
Le qualità del Dharma.
The qualities of the Dharma.
La principale
The
qualità del
main
Dharma
quality of the
è
Dharma
una via
is a way
che ci fa vedere
that shows us with clarity
cosa ci fa
what
male,
is harmful and what is good, what to cultivate and what to abandon,
e che funziona,
and what
che ci porti a tutti gli effetti
and that it works,
un percorso
that it brings us by all means
e verso
towards
uno
a
stato
path,
di
towards a
pace,
state of peace,
equilibrio,
of
che
balance,
riesca a
that
tutti
is
gli
able by
effetti a
all
farci
means
superare il
to
nostro
make us
ciclo
overcome
vicioso
our
di
vicious
sofferenza del samsara.
cycle of suffering of samsara.
Perché per quanto il
Because
Buddha
for as
sia
much as
meraviglioso,
the
se
Buddha
ciò che il
is
Buddha ci trasmette non
wonderful,
funziona,
if what Buddha transmits us doesn't
che vale.
work, then it's worth
Chiediamo le
what
sue
it's worth.
benedizioni,
We ask for his
finisce lì.
blessings and that's it.
Invece il percorso
But
che il Buddha ha
the
trasmesso,
path that
una delle
the
cose
Buddha
meravigliose del Dharma,
shared,
se noi andiamo a vedere,
one of
che il
the
Dharma
wonderful things of
trascende
Dharma
i
is that
tempi.
Dharma transcends
Noi
the
prendiamo
cultures
le
and
quattro nobili
the
verità
times.
insegnate
If we take the Four Noble
oltre
Truths that were
2500 anni fa in un
taught
contesto culturale totalmente diverso
200,
del nostro,
2000 years ago in a totally different cultural
completamente
context, they are still completely
adattate ai
up to
nostri
date and adapted to our times. Still something that is working perfectly even today. Dharma, for as much as one can look for defects in the Dharma, one cannot find them, or at least it was for me. Okay, there was like a moment where I said, okay, let's look for something that doesn't work, and still, up to today, I didn't find anything. There was something that I was studying once, and okay, like this, I don't understand what it means, like for me now, today at least. It was a part of the studies of where it's talking about the various types of harads and to calculate how much do they need on their path. It's very complicated, and that eventually I said, okay, why do I need this? And I couldn't understand it. But I never found incoherence in the teachings. There could be incoherence in some interpretations, incoherence in the way that one practices or the other. But when I look at the teachings of the Buddha and just how they were transmitted to me, I never found an incoherence in Dharma. Then the most important thing in Dharma is that if one practices, then it works. This path of development of love and compassion, wisdom, works. And for me, this is the main quality that we can describe of the Dharma, because actually the Dharma is like a path of healing, and the main path, the main quality that we should see in a medicine is not what the components are, but its quality is that if it's taken in the right way, then it heals the sickness. When we look at the Dharma on the side of the vision, so to listen to the teachings and to meditate, and we can add sacred art, the part of mantra, the Vajrayana meditation. There are many aspects. The reality is that if one does them well, they work. Not in the immediate moment, they just do it and then that's it. But gradually it brings us more and more to a state of peace. And here I ask myself, once that I see something that it works, if I have like a minimum of wisdom, what do I do? To just leave it there on the side, to ignore it? No, I don't have time now. Dharma, I will practice it tomorrow. Now I'm hungry. You know, then I'm tired, it's very hot. And then, you know, I also need to rest. And then I need to have some fun. Then I need to work, and then there is the wife, husband, partner, cat, dog, parrot. Each one has its own. And we are taken with 1,000 different things. There was a while ago in Senegal, there were the crocodiles. Who was taking care of the crocodiles? Okay, that could also be. And so life passes. And when we take refuge in the Dharma, it's not saying to say, oh, wow, how beautiful this system, how beautiful that there is something that it works. Because the other dharmas, if you can use this term, other methods that were given to us to reach a state of satisfaction, of happiness, to overcome suffering, they don't work. They work momentarily. Because it was transmitted to us a method to obtain happiness and to get out suffering through material goods, power, and so on, that eventually don't work. When we have something in our hands that works, we should really not leave it. And this is when we take refuge in the Dharma. But it's a gradual process, that of bit by bit be able to feel more and more how much this path, this medicine of the Dharma is real and functional and valid and coherent, and how much we can really rely on this. It's because of this that it's said that before to take refuge one should wait 12 years. So it's not like, okay, I got to know Buddhism and I need to wait 12 years and let time pass. It's not that. It's that one has to get some experiences and one needs to get to fall in love with the Dharma and get to a point where, okay, I don't want to leave it, this is the most precious thing that I have.
A quel punto uno
At that point, one is really ready to take refuge, and then the refuge becomes spontaneous, it's not a formal thing. And then there are the qualities of the Sangha. One of the first qualities is that when others follow a path, then it becomes easier for us to follow that path. This reminds me of a study that was done on some people that were walking in the mountains. They took various people, making them do the same path on the mountains, said the same physical difficulty, and they made them do that path by themselves or in company, like good company and also bad company. So with good company we mean like people that they got along with, and bad company where there was like conflict, and by themselves. What they saw is that when a person walked in good company physically, gets less tired.
Non è banale il fatto camminiamo insieme, mi fai compagnia, funziona.
The fact that there is good company, it works. And like I said yesterday, our spiritual path is individual, in the sense that no one can do it for us, but it's a path that should be walked in company.
Non so neanche come spiegare questo.
I also don't know how to explain these things well, technically, but I realize that when there are a few people that are starting to learn a certain concept, then it's very difficult to be able to assimilate those concepts. When there is already a certain number of people that have those concepts well assimilated, those that start to apprehend them, do that much more quickly. I don't know why. This I was able to see it many times. And so the fact of practicing together, of walking on the same path, each one taking his steps, but together, this is fundamental for us. Buddha Shakyamuni gave a tremendous level of importance to the community. Buddha even described that even among the first 5 worst things that one can do in life, like the most disastrous, destructive things, among these there is like killing one's own parents. There's also killing an evolved, a spiritually evolved being like a bodhisattva. There is to take blood away from a bodhisattva with an intention of violence, and to create division in the Sangha. To create division in the Sangha is such a negative act, because on the other hand, some harmony in the Sangha is so valuable and important. And so, without the others, we're not able to walk well. And very often we have an idea that the Sangha, we look for an idealized Sangha, the Sangha of the Arya, of the Bodhisattva, and there is also that. But the real Sangha, at the end, are those that walk along the same path on which we walk. And for as much as we also are not able to realize it or understand, the fact that we're not alone on this path helps us much more than we can understand. Even if we live in a time, in this time where we believe that we are self-talked and we know I can do it by myself and this and that. I remember more than one people that crashed on some accident and they broke some parts of their bodies. Rather than to ask for help, they would just suffer and try to do that by themselves. It's beautiful to ask help. In our spiritual path, everyone is taking his steps, but we sustain each other. And one of the important qualities of the Sangha, and is something that I really like to see here also, There are those who perceive it and those who perceive it less. I see it like this. It's a context where one feels that one can be himself or herself. A while ago I was talking with a person that attends the center and has to do with various other contexts for work and so on. It says the only place that I had ever seen, a person that traveled a lot, so many things, where no one is asking you, what do you do, where do you come from, why are you here, and listen, they just see you for you, not for the social position that you have, not for the money that you have or don't have, not for the studies that you did, for your job. Because what we share is our spiritual path. Then we follow the same line, the same masters, but if we check, we are so different. But there is something that unites us, that is much deeper. So the fact of being able to be in a context where we're not judged, and we are able to just be ourselves, and where there is trust in ourselves, this helps us to have trust in ourselves and to judge ourselves less. Sangha is extremely important. Sangha is something without which we're not able to evolve spiritually. And this doesn't necessarily mean to live in a place with a spiritual community that is structured and closed and so on. No, it's the fact that I follow a path and there are others that follow the same path. Also, with distance, we influence each other. I don't know in what other way to say it, but when we find ourselves with having the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and the Guru, how can we not take care of it? How can we not give value to it? The real problem for me is that after a while we take it for granted. After a while we get used to it, but it's normal, when there is nothing normal about it. There is nothing obvious about it. And so
Buddha in tutti I suoi insegnamenti,
Buddha, in all of his teachings, never shared anything without that it was asked of him. Buddha never went to anyone, you should do this, and look, it's good for you. Because if there isn't the part of the awareness of the need and the wish to walk, no one can force us. Sometimes we have some treasures and we don't realize. To take refuge is an act where we formalize to ourselves and say, okay, wow, I have these treasures and I cannot waste them. I rely on the Buddha, I rely on the Guru, I rely on Guru Buddha, so they can guide me correctly along the path. And I repeat what I said yesterday, it's not that I rely on the Buddha in the sense that, oh, please Buddha, I rely on you, do what you want of me. That would be convenient, I would like it. I am someone that with my masters I've always, okay, if there is a quality that I can brag about is that I've always followed what they told me to do. And when I went to Lama I told him, I asked him, Rinpoche, what do you do? You know it. No, but please you tell me. No, a few times he said, okay, do this. Then Lama sometimes when he was really doing something that was not right, he would say, maybe better not. When he would say maybe better not, that really meant that absolutely don't do it. But when we rely on Guru Buddha, that means that I rely on you. Show me the path. Show me the path so that I can walk with my legs and I put my being at the disposal of this path. And when we say to put ourselves at the disposal of the Guru, often there is a wrong understanding that we think that putting ourselves at the disposal of the guru means that one loses one's autonomy and should give all that one possesses materially and should give like his life away to just do what the other person tells us to do. But if we chose well, our guru, what does he want more than anything for us? What is his greatest intimate wish? Not secret because it's manifested, but like the greatest wish, that we practice the Dharma, that we really are able to overcome our mental defilements and are able to feel well with ourselves and the others. So if I put myself at the disposal of the Guru, how can I really be at his disposal? I should practice the Dharma. This is the most important thing. If there is someone that thinks that, okay, because one is closer to the Guru, because he's cooking for him and so on, the most excellent way to serve our master, to serve the Buddha, is to do what they really want from me, that is to get out of the samsara. So to practice the Dharma, to face our shadows with humility. Okay, I can improve here, and bit by bit I do it. And so when we take refuge,
c'è il momento di innamoramento.
There is the moment where we fall in love, and then we have to be careful to not fall into an automatic way. So that's why one renews that they take refuge. Then we also make that become an automatic thing. And then we say Namo Gurubhya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Sangha.
Namo Sangaya, Namo Gurubhya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Tri Ratnaya. Ok, fatto per oggi.
Okay, done. For today I did the take refuge. I took the commitment to do it 3 times a day. I did it. No, I did the recitation of the verses of the take of refuge. So in order to really take refuge, I need to look at samsara and to say no. No, I don't want to be into that. I look at the Buddha and say, wow, I want to get there. There is a path, a valid path, I should follow it. I put in practice, I take refuge in the Dharma. When I put into practice the Dharma, when I sit to meditate, when I apply the teachings in the daily life, when I'm really able to be more patient, where usually I would be taking from anger, where I'm able to be kind, where usually I would be friendly, when I'm able to practice generosity, morality, patience, and so on, then I take refuge effectively on the Dharma. And then there is the Sangha. There is the respect towards one towards the other, there is relying one on the other to sustain one on the other. That's where we take refuge every day. And so this afternoon we will get into some details, but it's important for us to try to understand that the take of refuge is not a formal act. There is like a before and an after in our lives, in the sense that when we take refuge, we start to walk towards a certain direction. And bit by bit, you're going there, but it has changed. There is a direction that I've given to my life. Take refuge is when we also formalize with ourselves that our priority in our life is to practice the Dharma. Why? Because we want to reach a state of peace, because we want the other beings to be at peace, and I cannot help the others to reach something that me, myself, I haven't reached. And so, to conclude, I invite you to reflect on where do you take refuge on, usually. Like yesterday, as we said at length, where do we want to go? And on the 2 causes of refuge. What is interesting is that if we cultivate the 2 causes of refuge, the so-called fear and faith, refuge happens automatically as a result. If we try to take refuge and don't develop the two causes, they will never happen. So the two causes, to not want to be in the cycle of samsara anymore, to be able to see suffering, that the all-pervasive suffering as suffering, and that's it. And on the other hand, to see, wow, the Buddha, how beautiful, I want to be like him, and to allow oneself to dream and to, okay, I want to reach the so-called nirvana, that state of peace, and that's why I rely on the Guru, the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha.
Si dice che uno diventa
Let's say that one becomes a Buddhist when it takes refuge. The mistake that we do sometimes is that we believe that there is like a membership card of a Buddhist, that one converted himself to Buddhism. There is no such thing as the conversion to Buddhism. And then there are those that, okay, calculate the number that took refuge, and those are the Buddhists, but it doesn't work like that. And with this we conclude, but once one of my masters, my main master of philosophy, we were 70 disciples receiving teachings from him, among which many lamas. It was the monastery of Sera, and it was giving the commentary of the Guru Yoga in 6 sessions. But anyway, at a certain point, he looks at us and says, "Who is Buddhist? Who is a Buddhist here?" And there were like 10 lamas. Then all the others are monks, were monks and everything. One is looking at each other. It seems like the question is a little bit too obvious, better not to answer. And he looks at us and says, "I don't know if you're really dead." And we were all frozen. And he says, "To be a Buddhist means to really take refuge." There are moments where we really take refuge, but many other moments where we simply go on with our comfortable survival, even in the religious field. Don't take for granted the fact of being a Buddhist. It's not a matter of belonging. To be a Buddhist doesn't mean to belong to a group. To be a Buddhist means to have a priority in one's own life, the path of inner development transmitted by Buddha. To rely on the Dharma by all means. That means to be a Buddhist. One maybe doesn't meet anyone, doesn't recite a mantra or anything, but relies on the teachings of Buddha and relies on the teaching as they were transmitted, and then he is a Buddhist. Maybe one is there repeating the take of refuge and has that huge attachment to the identity of Buddhism, and then he is not a Buddhist at all. In the sense that he doesn't really take refuge in the Dharma. His priority is not his inner path of growth towards nirvana, but is a matter of identity. And so the refuge is the door, the take of refuge is the door that allows us to enter into the path that Buddha transmitted to us. One becomes a Buddhist when one takes refuge. But let's remember that it's not a matter of belonging. It's a matter of a path of life, of the priority the one has. Now we make our dedications and we stop for lunch. I would say that so that everyone can eat at the right time, and I can also eat something, and then we go back. I will receive those that want to come personally at the end of the next session. And then today at the end of the next session, around 5, I asked briefly of Geshe Tubten Kunsan to come. He is this master. He was a disciple of Lama Michel Rinpoche. I've met him in around the 94. And for me as a person, there's really an example of life, what I said before, the personification of self-discipline. Then he is an architect in the sense that he built the various temples in India. Also here in our temple, the position of the various sacred images was advised by him. The main door of the temple was designed by him, so he helped us with many things. And he came here because he had the commitment of doing a Buddha medicine retreat here in Abbagnano. And because he had like some extra days, he even did like a retreat on Lama Tsongkhapa. He repeated like the prayer of Lama Tsongkhapa.
Che lui ha fatto l'accumulazione.
Did the accumulation, and he got to, if I remember well, like 8,400,000 recitations done in the meditation sessions. And he has a very dedicated life, and he built a small house for himself and he gave that house away for the reincarnation of Lama Ganchen. So if tomorrow he will need to go there to study, then he has that house. So he made a document, okay, he described all that it's inside in the house, all the sets of cups and everything, and he brought this to us. Okay, this I offer, and so I wanted to give to make like a moment to formalize this and to thank him. So at the end of the teachings he will come to have this moment together. And also wanted that so that you can also have some contact with these people that are really beautiful, very humble, so hardly they would accept to give some teachings or things like that, even if they have a level of knowledge that is incredible. He's one of those few people that even today in the Tibetan field that has all the knowledge of the part of the grammar, of the sacred art, of how things are correctly paginated, texts. He has an incredible knowledge in all of this. Anyway, now we eat, and then we come back.
Drove munsel tautu ne gyur chi sa shi pöki chushi meto tra rirav lingshi nide gemba di sangye shindu mikde ulwargi drogu namda shingla chö parasho yidam guru radna mindrala kam niryata yami nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shing Ninsen takto delek pe kuncho sumki chingelo kuncho sumki trashisho all'alba o al tramonto
Dawn or dusk, night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to obtain all realizations and to sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.
Buon appetito. E poi dopo
And then
questo pomeriggio anche
this afternoon also, I say now so that I will forget about it, I will give the brief explanation also of the oracle and what we mean by the protector of the Dharma and of this, because it also has a lot to do with the refuge.